Hello. Thank you for joining me at the last session in the last day. I think that you're probably exhausted from all the data, so I'll try to make it this session very entertaining, hopefully. I'm not Shai Reznik if you've been to his sessions, but I can run through the crowd and do some funky stuff, okay? Shai is a good friend of mine, so I know how he does his things. So I want to start with a rant. Single page application. The theme of this session is one of the, how should I say it? I don't know who picked that name, but damn, that name, single page application. I'm a consultant. I'm coming to places, to managers, to talk with them about single page applications. And the first thing that a manager asks me is, what? You are telling me that you are going to put the entire 150 pages inside of one single page? It's with infinite scrolling or something like that? Have you tried to convince a manager that single page application is good for them? Oh my God. And tell the truth, the shorthand is also problematic. Let's build a spa. You come to a manager and you say to him, let's build a spa. He said to you, oh, with a hot towel and a sauna and a jacuzzi. And this is a little bit problematic for me as a consultant to come to firms and companies and tell them about the good things about single page applications. But hey, we need to live with that. There is no other phrasing for that sentence, for that methodology or anything else. So we are stuck with that sentence, single page application. So you probably ask yourself, who am I? I'm Gil Fink. I'm the CEO of Sparksys. It's my own consulting company. I'm a Microsoft MVP in ASP.NET in the last 6 years. I've written a book called Pro Single Page Application. One of you is going to get it signed by me and Ido Flato, another speaker in this conference. So this is encouraging you to ask questions. The best question will win that book, okay? I also co-author of 4 Microsoft official courses. If you've done the HTML5 programming Microsoft official course, I've written it, and I also, it's a little bit of a sin, I've written the Windows 8 WinJS courses. It was helpful for me. I'm also running a meetup called GDG, Google Developer Group, in my city, Rishon. And I'm doing that with Shai Reznik and another speaker that you probably saw in the conference, which is Oren Rubin. So what are we going to do here today? This session is not about Angular. This session is not about Ember. This session is not about any other framework that you have probably heard. This session is going to help you to understand what is single page application, how to choose your frameworks, how to choose your libraries, how to write your SPA from the beginning. Because one thing that I'm always hearing when I'm coming to companies is, I want to start writing a SPA. I have zillion of libraries. What to do? Okay, so this is the idea of this session. I'm going to start with what is the thing that drove us to write single page applications, what is a SPA, and then we will drill down into building blocks of SPA and what will probably help you to write a successful SPA. Because my message to you is, you already have written a successful SPA, okay? Everything that you are doing is good. Keep on doing that, okay? But understand the questions before you start writing your code. So let's get started. The road for SPAs. Back then in 1990, the end of 1990, the starting of 1991, Sir Tim Berners-Lee created HTML and HTTP. Yeah, England. And then in 1995, we got the first SPA. Yes, Java applets. Who have written a Java applet in his professional life? Okay, so Java applets are a SPA because you have one page that runs the entire application. So in 1995, we had SPA, but there was a problems with Java. There is a problem with Java applets, and later on with other options that I'm going to talk about. Do you know what is the problem? Plugins. This is not JavaScript or anything that is written inside of the browser. This is something outside of the browser that plugs into the browser and do some stuff. Okay, so in 1996, CSS and JavaScript were developed. You know, Brandon High have written JavaScript in 10 days. Okay, that's an awful thing to do. A language in 10 days. And since then, it didn't change a lot. Okay? And in 1997, we had HTML4, the last specification. And yes, a few months ago, HTML5 was declared as a recommendation. So you can start working with HTML5. In 2000, it is not written in this slide, Microsoft, yes, Microsoft created the XML HTTP request, but they didn't know the power that they've written. And in 2005, Google showed them the road. Okay, so Google Maps was the first Ajax application out there. And since then, the Ajax word is exploding. And since 2006, HTML5 specification started to be written. Only in 2009, people started to hear about it because what happened then? Steve Jobs said, over my dead body, flash inside of the browser in iOS. Okay, so this is what brought HTML5 to all of us. And around 2007, Microsoft invented Silverlight, another plugin like Flash and Java applet that didn't work well. So before I start explaining what is a SPA, let's talk about traditional website. What is a traditional website? A traditional website is just a server rendering mechanism. The server is creating the pages. When you want to move from one page to another page, what you're doing? A post back to the server, and then the browser will get a response with new HTML. You will get blinking inside of your screen, and you move to another web page. If I'm talking about traditional websites, I'm talking about those things. You remember Amazon from 2000 or 1999? Oh my God. I don't want to see that anymore. So let's continue. Traditional native applications, you know, those applications that you write with WPF, WinForms, etc., etc. Application that you need to install inside a machine and then you run it, okay? Who've written a WPF or WinForm application in the past? Cool. So what is the big pain about traditional native application? We love installation experience. Not. Okay, so installing all those things inside of the client's computer is insane. You know, you use Install Shield or Click Once or any other technology, and it drives you nuts because nothing works inside of those computers. And I begged Microsoft, I begged them, please do something that can run on anything. But we can't. This is the first edition of Word, okay? Native app. Okay, so what is a SPA? What is a single page application? A web application. The good idea about a SPA is you don't have full page refreshes. You don't have embedded or plugins inside of that page. You have client-side templating and routing, and at least no full page submit occurs. You do use other means to do things. In a whole, a SPA is just a one page that acts as a shell for the entire application. And you use a routing mechanism in your client side to intercept all the requests and to change the view. Okay, it's like, if I compare it with other things, it's like I'm taking the best parts from web application and native application. It's the intersection, because SPA is a web application, so it is cross-platform. SPA, because you have only one page, everything occurs in one page, never loses context. So you can make client-side state management inside of a SPA, thing that you can do in native applications, but in applications like ASP.NET Web Forms or MVC, you lose that thing. You lose that state management on the client side. And a SPA doesn't need installation. You have a website. Okay? You install it once on the website, on the web server, and boom, everybody gets the last version of that application. So, as I said, SPA is the intersection of the good between two worlds. SPA includes a lot of building blocks. The first one is Web API. The server changes its role. The server is going to be mostly Web API exposed to the client to do things that you don't want to do on the client side. For example, authentication. The server won't render the pages for you. This is something that you are going to do in your client side. Also, another building block is REST. We'll talk about it more later on. You use AJAX or AJAX. Who heard that word, AJAX? Asynchronous JavaScript and JSON. Nobody uses XML anymore, and AJAX is asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So AJAX sounds creepy, and nobody uses it. So AJAX is AJAX today. So we use AJAX. We use JavaScript libraries. We use HTML5, and we have a routing mechanism inside of the client side. So let's explore it. Let's drill down into each block. HTML5. What do you know about HTML5? Okay, you are shy. Not Resnick, you are shy?
WebSockets.
What? WebSockets. Any other things that you know about
Canvas.
Canvas? Any other API? Video and audio inside of the browser. First-class citizens at last. Okay, so HTML5 is more than that. HTML5 isn't supported by most of the, it's supported by most of the browser, the evergreen browser, the browser which are currently in release, but is not supported in IE 6, 7, 8, even 9 doesn't support most of the features. But you can use the caniuse.com website to see which feature exists in each browser. So I encourage you to go to that website and take a look at it. But HTML5 brought us a lot of new APIs in JavaScript and for HTML. I think it's like 56 different APIs that you can use even today in your browser. It's not just WebSockets or Canvas or video and audio. It's web workers to do concurrent things in the browser. It's local storage or IndexedDB to save data in the client side. It's application cache to cache things inside of your client side and to take your application offline. Yes, we can do that. It's audio and video APIs that can manipulate the streams of the audio you get from the, or manipulate the things that you are doing and more. So HTML5 is a new way to think about JavaScript or to develop applications today. Ajax. So as I said, Ajax is just asynchronous JavaScript and XML, and we don't use XML today, so you can call it Ajax, but it sounds creepy, so let's keep it with Ajax. So what Ajax gives you is the ability to asynchronous call a server API without blocking the thread of the UI. JavaScript runs in one thread. Okay, so you can use that to maintain your state in the client side, not to refresh the whole page. You can use that to communicate with the server, and later on, once the response arrives, whether it's with JSON, XML, or whatever, what you are using, then you can use JavaScript to change the parts inside of your web page as you need. So Ajax gives you the opportunity to do things that probably you thought about it, but it enables you not to refresh the whole page every single time, like in web forms or even in MVC, ASP.NET MVC. And I talked about JavaScript libraries. I could have put some, I think, 600 slides with the amount of logos of JavaScript libraries because there is this Atwood law that says that any application that can be written in JavaScript will eventually be written in JavaScript, okay? So we have a large community that writes tons and tons of libraries and frameworks in JavaScript, and the problem that we get from that is, oh, I need to pick something. What to pick? Should I pick Ember? It has a good mechanism for MVC. Or should I take Backbone or Angular or anything else? And this is a very big pain for us because we need to understand each and every library before we choose it. And maybe you will have 2 libraries inside of your application that do the same thing. I came to a client that had 5 different libraries that do the same thing for every page in this application. Okay, that's not a good thing to do, I think. So let's talk about REST, representational state transfer. I'm not a REST enthusiastic or something like that. I won't dig in the ground about REST, but REST gives you the power of using HTTP as HTTP. That means that first it's an architecture style, and you use HTTP as you meant to use HTTP. That means that the HTTP has verbs like get, post, put, delete, heads, and etc. And you use those things, that language in order to express things inside of your server. So for example, if you heard about ASP.NET Web API, it leveraged the REST idea. It uses those verbs and anything else inside and you use it to do CRUD, create, read, update, delete functionality in order to be RESTful. More than that, that's another thing about REST. REST doesn't imply that you are going to use only JSON. REST it implies that the application can use more than one format. So if you can, please, in your web APIs, expose more than just one format. Your clients will thank you later because maybe you will have a client that uses only XML and his developers doesn't know how to use JSON or manipulate JSON. You can return things like XHTML or even HTML. You need just to know that REST doesn't imply that you'll use just JSON. Web API. As I said, the server changes its role. It's no longer a rendering or a routing mechanism. So what the server is doing is exposing its API. You'll expose API using REST to the client, and no more than that. Client-side routing. All routing is performed in the client side in a single page application. That means that you'll use a library like, for example, never mind, forgot. It's the blackout thing like that. Okay, so you will use libraries and frameworks. You have routing engine inside of Angular. You have router in Backbone. You have libraries that do only routing like history. And you can even write your own routing library with history API, the HTML5 history API. The idea here is once a route changes, the library intercepts the change and then performs something in the client side in JavaScript instead of going to the server, sending a request, and refresh the whole page. So routing is probably the most important idea of a single page application. More than that, you will probably use a template library in order to create the views. So every view in your application is going to be a template in the client side that you are going to use later on. So without any further talking, let's see a real, not real, but let's see a SPA that I've written for this book. Okay? So I'm going to run this single page application. And it's MI6 management for England. And you can see here the James Bond and the Q and Ivy, whatever. And of course, Chuck Norris, because I love Chuck Norris. He knows how to kick very high. Okay, and what this application is doing is you can drill down into the agent and you can see his task or assignments. For example, let's kill Goldfinger or Renard or whatever. We can change that and even delete James Bond. Oh my God, I'm not doing that on England so. You can edit James Bond and let's make it 008. Please don't kill me. And we can go back, manipulate any other agent, or even create our own agent. And as you can see, the flow here is very, very fast, and things happen very fast. It is because I'm intercepting each and every request, and I'm changing the URL and nothing more. Okay? And I'm not refreshing, but I'm creating using template the view that you are seeing here. So you can see here a view, and here is the details about Agent 1, which is James Bond, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is a small but powerful knowledge to know, because this is the idea of a single page application. Everything works together in order to create an application that feels like native application, but it is a web application. Let's go on. So we saw that demo, and we saw a single page application in action, but let's continue. So I said to you that the idea of this session is to tell you what makes a successful SPA. And as I said, my message is you. You will do successful SPAs. But in order to do that, you need to get your start from the beginning, and let's talk about what makes a real successful SPA. So the first thing is working with an environment, an IDE. Later on, we'll see the choices that we have. I'll talk about how to choose the framework, okay? You've all heard about Ember or Angular or whatever. But does those libraries or frameworks fit your needs? If yes, then go for them. If not, don't take them. I'll talk about supporting libraries. Where is jQuery inside of everything? Who used jQuery? Okay, so we have supporting libraries. We'll talk about server web API, and we'll keep performance in mind, because one of the major things about SPA is everything runs in the client side, and JavaScript can have memory leaks, and it can have a lot of problems because it's JavaScript. It was written in 10 days. And let's play a game. As you can see from my Alienware, I was a gamer. Okay, now I'm running a company, so I don't have time. So let's take the metaphor of playing a battlefield game, and let's drill down into SPA development with that game in mind. So the first thing, you choose your battlefield. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is choose your IDE, your environment. And you have a lot of choices. Who work with WebStorm? Okay, not a lot of people. Who works with Visual Studio? Yeah, Visual Studio. Who works with Eclipse? Yeah, Eclipse. And who does JavaScript development hardcore with Sublime Text? Cool. So you love to feel the pain. Okay, so it's a text editor. It's not an IDE, but we'll use it because it's cool. No, because it can give you a lot of things that other IDEs doesn't give you. So let's see a little bit of demos for those environments. So the first thing that I'm going to open is Sublime Text. Okay, it's a text editor that you can add a lot of plugins to it. It has a lot of community plugins. So one of the best plugins that I know is package control that helps you to install any package. Let's install. Yeah, I have web running. So we have tons of plugins to that text editor. And I have installed a lot of plugins, and I'm using Sublime, and this is probably one of the good features. Another good feature about Sublime is that the option to edit more than one parameter or one line of code together. So you can make multiple changes in your source code very, very fast. Okay, so this is Sublime, but one drawback of Sublime is it's not an IDE. It starts looking like an IDE, but you need to pick a lot of plugins in order to create your appropriate experience. So I talked about WebStorm. WebStorm is a product by JetBrains, the guys that created ReSharper and a lot of other good IDEs like IntelliJ or PHP Storm. And the good thing about WebStorm for web developers is, okay, nope, not this. You can go to the settings, and there were sessions, I think, about, for example, Bower, a package manager for web applications, for client-side libraries. Okay, so you can use Bower inside of WebStorm, and you can use Node and NPM inside of WebStorm. So it helps you to create application fast if you are a client-side developer. It's an IDE with a lot of refactoring in mind, so I really love it, but it's another choice, another opportunity. The third IDE that I'm going to show you is, you see that already, I think, in work, because most of you just raised the hand and said that you are using Visual Studio. So I'm also using Visual Studio, and I like it. And it includes the NuGet package manager and a lot of good stuff in it. But If you're using Visual Studio in versions like 2008 or 2010, it is not good enough for web development, in my humble opinion. Okay, 2013 became better, and the 2015 that is going to be released, I think, this year, hopefully, will be even better than that. So if you're talking about what to pick, so we saw 3 different IDEs or text editors, but what to pick? So the first thing that I'm suggesting is, if you're doing .NET, raise your hand if you're doing .NET. So Visual Studio, thank you. If you're working with Java, there is Eclipse, and it's the best editor for Java developers. If you are working with client-side only, doing hardcore JavaScript development like I do, I prefer WebStorm. But you can also choose Sublime, because it's good, and it is becoming better and better with all the plugin environment that it includes. But one thing that you should keep in mind is, check that the IDE includes or supports the tools that you need. For example, one drawback in Visual Studio is that Visual Studio doesn't support Bower or Grunt or Gulp, which are task managers or package manager for client-side libraries like Bower inside of it. So there is an extension that is currently in, I think, beta for Bower and Grunt and Gulp for Visual Studio 2013, and 2015 will include those things inside of it. A question?
Web Essentials actually supports Bower operations and Gulp.
So, which?
Web Essentials?
Web Essentials?
Yeah, it's Mats Christensen.
Yeah, I know. But only for 2013. And in 2015, this is probably going to be included inside of the IDE. If you're working with Visual Studio 2010 or 8, and there are people that still work in those environments, you don't have Bower, Gulp, or Grunt. So you'll probably install NPM and run it outside of Visual Studio, and that's a pain. You don't want to do half the development in one environment, half development in other environment, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So that's my opinion. So check whether those things that you probably need included in the IDE. If not, if you don't need those, Grunt, Gulp, Bower, whatever, then Visual Studio is probably the best choice. But if you need those libraries, then you need extensions for Visual Studio. And that might be a painful thing if you are in an enterprise and you need to download the extension, install them in every developer machine, and etc. Okay, so this is one thing. So make your battlefield as comfortable as possible. That's my opinion. Choose the environment that fits you like a glove. Another pain that I see when people start writing single-page application is organizing your file structure. There are 2 ways to do that, and I prefer the right way, okay? But you can do it in those 2 ways. The first way is by file type, okay? You will create a folder for each type. So if you are writing Angular application, you will have a controller folder, a directive folder, a filter folder, service folder, view folder, etc. That doesn't work good in very big applications. Sorry.
Why?
What?
Why?
Because in very big applications, once you put all the controllers in one place, then the folder becomes bloated with tons of controllers that you need to seek from them the relevant controllers that you are going to work on. Okay, so I prefer to change it or change the mindset and do by logic models. You divide your application to models, okay? Each model has its own folder, and in each folder you have the file by type. But since you are having a model mindset, then you know that if some controller is related to a model, then you will go to the model and then you will find that controller. Inside of the folder, you will have 3, 4, 5 controls tops. And this is better. So in small applications, you can use by file type, file structure order. Okay?
If you're using an IDE like Visual Studio, would it be better to organize it into a number of projects instead of just in one big project? So have a solution with a number of projects?
That's a good question. Whether I'm going to use different projects for my single page application. Okay? The answer is I'll prefer to keep the whole single page application inside of one project and not separate it to different projects, because all of the different projects will be eventually a web application, which is a small single page application and another small single page application and another small single page application. So if you're doing that, which is good, if you are building a massive big portal or a big application inside of your enterprise, then this is good for you. But if you're building a straightforward application, don't divide it to different projects. Okay?
What if you've got the case where you're building a number of applications, but there's some common functionality between them?
Okay, so this is the common folder here. And I can share that folder from one project to another project. Okay, so I didn't mention it, but you will have a common or core folder that you're going to put things which are reusable for more than one thing. Okay, so good question. I'll remember that at the end of the session when I'll pick the winner of the book. And let's go on. So we talked about structuring our folders. We have 2 choices. Let's keep on and let's choose your team, or maybe choose the framework. It's the most important thing that you are going to do in the application. Choosing the framework is probably, or choosing your team is probably the most important thing, because there are a variety of frameworks, but the variety of big frameworks is very small. So you can find Angular and Backbone or Sencha or Ember. If you heard about Aurelia, the new Rob Eisenberg framework, which is very good, or Batman.js, and there is CanJS and MVC.js or whatever. And the variety of those frameworks is very, very small. But how to choose, how to pick that framework that will be the backbone, not Backbone.js, of your application? So have you heard about To Do MVC? Raise your hand if you heard about To Do MVC. Cool. This is the first place that I will probably go to when I want to pick that big framework. Okay? To Do MVC is a website created by the community. Mostly it started by Adi Osmani from Mozilla, which is now in Google. And what it does, it gives you a lot of ideas of how to create a to-do application with most of the big frameworks out there. So you can see here that they support Backbone and Knockout and Knockback and React and Ember and Angular, etc. So the first thing that I suggest you to do is just download the entire 1.3 megabytes of the whole applications, and later on, open them and start looking at the implementation and start figuring out whether you want to go in one direction or whether you want to go in another direction. For example, we have here 3 projects that I took from the To Do MVC. All of them will eventually, if I run it, create the MVC application. Ta-da! Yeah, let's do something cool. Okay, let's erase it. Yeah. Okay, so we have that application, and as you can see, we have the AngularJS style. let's open it. So we have controllers, one controller, two directives, and one service, and the application itself. And if you drill down into that implementation, you can see a lot of Angular goodies inside of it, but the idea here is to understand how to set your mindset and use the framework, and if it fits your needs. For example, if I'm looking at, let's take a look at Knockout. Who uses Knockout in his application? I'm not going to rant about it. And Knockout implementation has only app.js. Not such modular implementation, I think. So we have a key handler binding factory, and we have another binding handler, and another binding handler, and select and focus, and a lot of goodies, and view model. Here is the view model that, inside of Knockout, and the MVVM. I don't know who wrote that, but it's not such a good example to look at once you want to build your application. Okay, I prefer to divide my application into smaller parts. Okay, so we have that in mind, and we have the, for example, backbone mindset. So we have collections and models and router and views. We have two views here in the application, and I can drill down into those, and it is smaller than what we saw in Knockout, but it has its own problems. Okay, so what I'm suggesting is go to that website, look at the code before you pick your framework, and see if it fits you. And later on, start asking questions. The first question that I'm always asking as a developer is, how is it to write something in a framework? For example, Ember is very hard to learn. Angular looks like that with its learning curve. It's, a roller coaster. But you will finally learn it. Okay? Backbone, you learn 5 objects, and yeah, we are good to go, but you'll need to implement the whole application because it's just structure. Okay, so after you think about how easy to use that framework, the second thing is good documentation. If the framework doesn't have a good documentation, you'll probably hit the wall someday, and you will go to Stack Overflow or to any other website that you're using to ask questions, and maybe you won't get your preferred answer or answers at all. So this leads me to the third question, which is the community. How big is the community? Angular was majorly adapted. It's like millions of people are rushing into that framework because it's cool and it's from Google. But for example, if you're looking at Knockout and you're a .NET developer, a lot of .NET developers embraced Knockout. So there are a lot of answers and a small community around it, which is very specialized only in Knockout, and a lot of them are very they answer the questions in Stack Overflow and they are very helpful. That's the word that I searched. Okay, so supportive community. Another question is, does the framework is supported by a known company? This is not your question. This is going to be your manager question. Backbone is supported by the community. Angular is supported by Google. Knockout isn't supported by Microsoft, but Steve Sanderson, the writer of Knockout, came from Microsoft. Okay, and Microsoft drove it. So if it's from a known company, they will probably write it and keep it good and will keep it forever. Not. Who heard about Angular 2.0? Okay, they changed the whole framework. Hopefully they will and I know that they will have some migration path. So that's a problem, that a lot of people are afraid from that change, and I hope that the change will come very soon, so we'll be able to write better code with Angular. Okay? Another thing to keep in mind, do known websites or application use the framework? How many application uses Angular out there? Who uses Angular? Who use Backbone? Who use Ember? So if you have those answers, you will probably have a lot of pros and cons for the framework, and then you will be able to pick the framework that you need. Choose the team that will be the most productive and effective for you. Okay, for you, for your development of team or your development company. Don't choose it because it's a community-driven buzzword, like, and I'm not ranting about Angular or anything else, okay? I love Angular. So choose the thing that is most productive and effective for you. If it's Knockout, go to Knockout. If it's Ember, go to Ember. Don't be embarrassed. Okay, so after we chose our team, let's choose the weapon. And choosing the weapon, it's like choosing a supporting library. Everybody raised their hand once I asked about jQuery. We love jQuery, and we love to hate it. Okay? But supporting library is not just jQuery. And one thing that bothers me a lot is the idea of once you pick the framework, it picked the supporting libraries for you. Okay? Supporting libraries are mainly chosen for you or connected to frameworks. Okay? So Angular have a lot of plugins for it, and Backbone a lot of plugins for it only, like Marionette or whatever. So let's talk about types of supporting libraries. DOM manipulation. jQuery is just a DOM manipulation library. So it is good for that thing, not only for that thing, but it is good mainly for that thing. So you can use it only for that thing inside of even Angular, okay? Or even with Backbone or Ember, if you want, but you don't have to, okay? Angular uses a light version of jQuery inside of it, and I can give you a tip because I had a performance tuning of an application, and we found that jQuery with Angular in different version might leak, okay? It's like version, I think, 1.9 with Angular 1.3 or something like that. You will have a memory leak built in your application. Cool for us. Okay, so we have DOM manipulation supporting libraries, jQuery, Prototype, Mootools, YUI, okay? But there are other options or other types, like who used underscore or Lodash? Okay, it's a utility belt. It includes a lot of array manipulation function and etc. that can be very helpful. So you can use those. Routing, as I said, you have routing engines inside of Backbone and Ember and Angular, but there are libraries that can do that for you. The first version of Durandal, which is now Aurelia, used Semi.js as the route engine for the SPA development. Now they have their own route engine. Okay? So another example is AMD, asynchronous model definition. If you want to create models and load them with the loader asynchronously, then you can go to require.js or Almond or any other library. You'll have to do a lot of manipulation to use require.js with Angular. I had that pain twice, and I don't want to repeat it. Okay? CSS libraries that comes with JavaScript libraries like Bootstrap or Foundation. You can use those in order to make your development faster. And you can combine those with the major framework that you are going to use. You have Angular UI, which is the directive implementation on top of Bootstrap, for example. And data manipulation like Breeze, and there are other libraries that helps you to do data manipulation, okay? To get data from the server and to act like entity framework in the client side, if you know entity framework. Yes?
Does using too many libraries make life easier, or because it being more complex?
No. Choosing many libraries makes the application more complex because you will need to have people that specialize in too many libraries, okay? So I prefer a very small amount of libraries that gives me the power. Like, for example, Angular is one-stop shop, okay? But if you go to to Backbone, you have a supporting library like Marionette on top of it, and then you will use jQuery and underscore, and that's enough for the whole application, okay? So you don't need to run like a crazy guy and pick everything, and that's what I'm going to, okay? Not going, that's the idea of this slide. We have millions of libraries. What to do with that? Because it's very, very confusing. And we have a lot of choice to pick from. So what to do? Just pick the libraries that support the functionality that you need. Okay? That's the main theme. That's the main idea. If the library doesn't support the functionality that you need, don't pick it. Don't use it. Okay? Another thing is good performance. There are libraries, I won't say which, that takes your performance and stuff them into the ground. Okay? I found more than one library that does that for you. For example, I said a memory leaking built in Angular with version of jQuery. So I'm not encouraging you not to use jQuery with Angular, but you need to know the version that you're using in order not to fall to that memory leak. Okay? Community behind. It's very important. Underscore and Lodash are very community driven, and they get new versions from time to time. There are libraries that doesn't evolve, and you don't want to pick those. For example, I came to a customer and they had a jQuery plugin from, I think somebody wrote it in 2009, the version 1 of it. And since then, there is no other version. So they said to me, what should we do? There are bugs in that plugin. So I said to them, you chose that shit, and you need to live with that. That means that you will need to take the library and you will need to write or override its code in order to solve the bugs that you have, because that developer isn't maintaining that library anymore. Question? Okay. You should choose libraries that are modular. That means that if the library isn't modular enough, then don't pick it, because someday you will need to maybe to remove that library and to put some library or another library instead of it. If it's not modular, you won't be able to do that. Okay? And of course, good implementation, it's always a good advice. If the library is in GitHub and it doesn't have anything else than an example, I wouldn't bother choosing it. So don't be tempted to choose the weapon you don't really need just because they are cool. There are a lot of cool libraries out there. Don't pick the rifle that doesn't do anything other than firing flowers or something like that. Okay, it's cool. Because you will end with that Swiss knife. You want it in your pocket? That big Swiss knife? I don't want something like that in my pockets. Okay, so I talked about libraries. Let's talk about a supporting platform, that hovercraft or something like that. Okay, this is our web API. Okay, and there are a lot of things that we need to understand about web API when we create them. It doesn't have to be only CRUD, of course, but the thing about web API is build a robust API, something that doesn't change or very oftenly. And don't break your API occasionally, because you have customers and they might use the API, and if the API changes occasionally, then they will pick the company, the people who write a better API than you, other companies than you. Make the API flexible, support more than just JSON format. Okay, you are doing RESTful implementation, then you have JSON, of course, but expose XML as well, expose XHTML, blob, and etc. Make it adaptable for people. Reuse. If people want to use your APIs, and APIs are not just CRUD and RPC. Okay, a lot of companies sell in the SaaS model their API as a software. So if you want to build an API, go with those guidelines. Okay, they will help you create a better API. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about is keeping performance in mind, because at the end of the mission that we took, we want to be the best man or the best man in the team or something like that. Okay, you want that your performance will be good inside of the game. So what I mean about performance tuning? Most of the SPA is created in JavaScript. So you need to understand things about JavaScript. And more than that, you can count on the platform, on V8 Chrome, engine in Chrome, or on Trident or Chakra in IE or whatever. You can count on them that they will do the optimizations for you. And a lot of times when I come to companies and I'm talking about performance, and they ask me to do code review, and I find so many problems that I want to lose the air that I have by taking it out and screaming, oh my God, what have you done? Okay, so once you have a single page application, the performance is crucial, because you will lose your users if the performance will be bad. Okay? But optimizations are not only for JavaScript. You can do optimization for backend code. And I'm not going to talk about the backend code. I'm going to drill down a little bit about the front end. So know the running environment. Okay? Know what the browser is going to do once you do something in your application. So browser process, when you are using JavaScript or when you're using HTML in a whole, is like this. Parse, it starts by parsing the HTML document and constructing a DOM tree. Later on, it creates a render tree from that DOM tree. And then it adds a layout to the render tree. And at the end, it paints the render tree. So this is the process. And these two cubes are very, very expensive. Repaint and reflows. Who heard the phrase reflow in the browser? Okay? Yeah! 3-4 people, and that's not good. Because if you're a web developer, you need to understand that. A reflow might occur whenever a visual change requires that the layout of the whole page will change. And if that happens, and you don't have a control on that, the browser will decides that he is doing a reflow, it shut down the processing of the JavaScript, and you wait. And your application will wait. Okay, so if you do resize, you resize the window, you will get a reflow. If you do a simple DOM manipulation, you add some div, to your HTML, you might trigger a reflow. So you need to think about it before you do those things. A less expensive thing is the repaints. Repaints occurs when a visual change doesn't require recalculation of the whole layout. That means that the browser will repaint some area in the view. Okay? For example, you change the visibility of an element. This is not a layout thing, it's repaint. You change the text color, the background color of an element. That's repainting. Okay? But both of those processes, which are this and this, are very expensive. These are the drawbacks that keeps your application not fast and fluid, but more like the animation is going, and you will have managers that say to you something like, hey, please, people are complaining about the animation, it's not running very fast, and etc., or things doesn't work as expected. So keep that in mind, and use the right tools for finding performance issues. I'm going to show you Chrome developer tools, and there are other tools like Firebug, IE developer tools, or static page analysis. This is a very good thing to look for. For example, who used page speed or Y slow? Okay, not a lot of people. Use those tools. You can download plugins to the browser that includes those tools, and then you will get static analysis about your web page. How many HTTP requests the web page is doing? And you will get hints about things that can help you do the performance tuning. Poor performance equals less users. And let's demo it a little bit. So I have here a small application with, not this, nope. Okay, I have here a small application that I'm going to show you. Okay, that application, that web page, if I run it in Google Chrome, okay, it paints something like that. It was fast, yes? Okay, so let's take a look at the code here, and I'll try to explain to you what's, no. You will tell me what are the problems in the code, okay? You will tell me, because I know, okay? So we have here the source code, and we have here two functions. Decimal to hex. I'm creating a decimal, I'm taking decimal number and making hex number, okay? That's the conversion, and make color sorter, okay? That's fine. We have two functions here, and it ran very fast, no? Let's take a look at what we can find if we run a debugger, or sorry, a profiler, okay? So the first thing that I'm going to do is press F12, okay? And in the developer tools here, you have the profiler tab. Go to the profiler tab and search for collect JavaScript CPU profile. Okay, I'll start collecting the profile, and I'll press F5. Okay, it ran, and I'll say stop. And I'm getting a list of things or things that happened. And you can see something very strange here. Okay, the strange thing here is I'm using jQuery, for example, but the application spent almost 3% of its time, 150 milliseconds, inside of the make color sorter, and 80% of 80 milliseconds in the decimal to hex. This is something that you need to smell. Okay, if your functions appear at the top, they have something bad in it. There is a performance problem there. Okay, so we know that we have a performance problem here. Let's check it out. Let's check the code. Okay, so let's take a look at the make color sorter, and let's try to figure out why it's performing so bad. Somebody has a clue here? The DOM manipulation. Yeah. Okay, so we have a loop here that iterates on an array, and every time it finishes iterating something, it appends a div that I'm creating. That's okay. That's something that we do. But in every iteration, we might have a reflow, and that might stop the engine, the V8 engine of Chrome, and do reflow from, again. Okay. Another thing that you might think about. Okay, I'll give you a hint. Here. Okay. This is a problem. Okay, the decimal to hex is a problem. Okay, I want to use background color, and I'm giving it a hex decimal number, and the problem here is I don't need to do that because I got the red, blue, and green, and all I need to know is that I have an RGB function in CSS, and this is the problem here. Okay, the calculation here is stupid. So let's take a look at the solution, okay, the endpoint. Once we go to the endpoint here, you can see here that I don't have the function here, the function that is called decimal to hex, because here I'm concatenating RGB instead of hash, okay? Another thing to notice here is that in each iteration, I add to the colors string the div that I want to create. And I'm doing only one append at the end. So I will have only one reflow, and that's OK, instead of a lot of reflows in the first solution. And if I'll run that web page, okay, it looks like it wasn't so fast, or it looks like that the page didn't change, but it changed a lot. Because if I'm going to profile it again, press F5 and finish. Let's search the word make color sorter. Okay, it's not up in the function here. If you see it, shout, I see the function. Up a bit, up. Here it is. It took 4 milliseconds. You remember the previous solution with the hex calculation and the other make sorter or make color sorter? It's an enormous change, but all the change that we did is we minimized the amount of reflows. Okay? Remember that when you are doing web development or JavaScript development. Another thing that you might see here is why slow. Okay? Why slow, as I said, is a plugin that I'm using to look or to static and analyze a web page. Okay, I can run it. Let's run a test here. Okay, and I get a grade of A. Cool. Best student. Okay, but you get a lot of hints about things that might be problematic in the web page. For example, use content delivery network, CDN. You can do that. I'm using jQuery not from CDN. I'm using jQuery from the project that I've created. Okay, and with those hints, you can. I didn't compress anything with gzip. Okay, so with those things, we can performance tune our application. Okay, so another thing, I mentioned memory leaks. Okay, let's take a look at a very strange thing that we can do with JavaScript that does a memory leak. Okay, not this one, this. Okay, so I have a web page here, and let's just run it. And you don't see anything, okay? But that web page is going to do something. what the web page is doing is running a start function once the web page is loading, and take the main element here, the div, and create an element, a div element, and append it, and then remove it, and then run fill here, which fill is going to just create the div element that is going to include a data array of 10,000 instances of a string, okay? That's something that we do, but there is a built-in memory leak here, and let's take a heap snapshot, which helps us to find memory leaks, okay? And let's take a look at the results. And I know that one thing that is going to be in the results is that if I open the HTML div element here, the things here are marked in red. You see here detached DOM tree. Detached DOM tree means that we have elements in memory that some element reference them, but they are non-reusable anymore. Okay? We are not using them, but somebody is pointing to them, and the garbage collector of JavaScript can release them. Can't. Okay? And it won't release them anymore. Okay? A lot of, if you profile Gmail, they have a little bit of memory leaks that they solved. But let's take a look at here the developer tools. And who can say to me, for a book, what's the problem? Remove? Okay. No, that's not the problem. What made the problem? Yes? You got a book. Okay, so detach here wasn't, when I used it, I didn't use var. So I got a global variable, and later on, I used it again in another function. And JavaScript created a global variable that lives forever and holds reference to things that are detached. Okay? So come to me at the end of the session and get your book. And this is the problem. Okay? And it's a very small pitfall in JavaScript. I forgot to put var. Yeah, memory leak. Yeah.
Use strict help.
Use strict will help. Okay, if I use the string here, use strict, then the strict mode will find that that detach and will shout at you that you are doing something wrong. Okay. Other option is just lint or just hint that might find that problem for you. Okay, so it's another tooling. Static analysis for your JavaScript code. So if you're building JavaScript application and you are not using just hint, lint, or whatever in your builds, JavaScript builds, yes, we build JavaScript, then you're doing something wrong. So please use a linter and find out those small but enormous problems. Okay, so we profiled the application and we learned a little bit about Chrome developer tools, but all the other developer tools like Firebug and iDevTools include the same, not the same, but implementation of profilers and debuggers that can help you to performance tuning your application. And with that, any questions? Yes.
When your application gets too big, if you have one single page application, for example, on the beginning you're going to load loads and loads of libraries. Is it a good practice to maybe try to split in different HTML?
Okay, so the question was, it's for the recording, if the application becomes too big, is it a good thing to separate the application into templates or something like that? Yes, and more than that. As I said earlier, I think to you, there are options that you will create a lot of small spas with a server-side routing between them. Okay, so you'll have a menu that knows how to route to another spa, Okay, and this is one of the best solutions that I found for big applications. Don't create the whole thing as a spa because it won't massage your shoulders or anything else. It will make you want that somebody will do that because you probably will be like that. Oh, and you come home very annoyed. Any other question? Yes?
How can you open up a spa for better SEO?
Okay, so this is a very big question. Most of the problem here is the question itself. Because single page application, mainly I don't want to use SEO on applications. I want to use SEO on websites. And this is something that I've written about in the book, a chapter that you can do. You can use means to create your entire application using Phantom.js or any other browser server that intercept the requests for crawlers and then spit out HTML instead of your JavaScript. So you will have something that processes the application for you in the backend, and the crawlers like Google crawler or Bing or whatever will go to that point. But to build that solution, it's a pain thing. Okay, so most of the time when I'm working on single page application, they don't need SEO. Okay, it's an application, it's not a website. If you decided to create a website as a single page application, then you will have that problem. But it's not problematic anymore because Google announced, I think 1 year ago, that their crawler is going to run JavaScript. Okay, so if they're doing that or preparing to do that, all the other all the other search engine will need to cope with that and do that, or else they will lose their market. Okay, so there are other solutions like, hey, crawlers, do that thing for us. Any other question? Okay, so let's summarize. SPAs are applications that run in one shell, in one single page, in one shell, and uses routing engine and template engine inside of the client side instead of the server side. Okay, you massively use JavaScript. The idea of this session was to give you hints or the questions in order to pick the libraries and frameworks that you are going to use. Don't run in or don't rush into one framework because it has a buzz. Maybe it doesn't fit your needs. Think about it and build a successful SPA. The resources, I already uploaded the slide deck yesterday. You can find it in my SlideShare. I will put the demos in my website and my blog. I hope later on today, if not tomorrow. And without, thank you and build good and successful SPAs. Thanks. What is a SPA? Let's talk about traditional website. What is a traditional website? A traditional website is just a server rendering mechanism. The server is creating the pages. When you want to move from one page to another page, what you're doing? A post back to the server, and then the browser will get a response with new HTML. You will get blinking inside of your screen, and you move to another web page. If I'm talking about traditional websites, I'm talking about those things. You remember Amazon from 2000 or 1999? Oh my God. I don't want to see that anymore. So let's continue. Traditional native applications, you know, those applications that you write with WPF, WinForms, etc., etc. Application that you need to install inside a machine and then you run it, okay? Who've written a WPF or WinForm application in the past? Cool. So what is the big pain about traditional native application? We love installation. application experience. Not. Okay, so installing all those things inside of the client's computer is insane. You know, you use install shield or click once or any other technology, and it drives you nuts because nothing works inside of those computers. And I begged Microsoft, I begged them, please do something that can run on anything. But we can't. This is the first edition of Word, okay? Native app. Okay, so what is a SPA? What is a single page application? A web application. The good idea about a SPA is you don't have full page refreshes. You don't have embedded or plugins inside of that page. You have client-side templating and routing, and at least no full page submit occurs. You do use other means to do things. In a whole, a SPA is just a one page that acts as a shell for the entire application. And you use a routing mechanism in your client side to intercept all the requests and to change the. Hello. Thank you for joining me at the last session in the last day. I think that you're probably exhausted from all the data, so I'll try to make it this session very entertaining, hopefully. I'm not Shai Resnick if you've been to his sessions. But I can run through the crowd and do some funky stuff, okay? Shai is a good friend of mine, so I know how he does his things. So I want to start with a rant. Single page application. The theme of this session is one of the, how should I say it? I don't know who picked that name, but damn, that name, single page application. I'm a consultant. I'm coming to places, to managers, to talk with them about single page applications. And the first thing that a manager asked me is, what? You are telling me that you are going to put the entire 150 pages inside of one single page? It's with infinite scrolling or something like that? Have you tried to convince a manager that single page application is good for them? Oh my God. And tell the truth, the shorthand is also problematic. Let's build a SPA. You come to a manager and you say to him, let's build a SPA. He said to you, oh, with a hot towel and a sauna and a jacuzzi. And this is a little bit problematic for me as a consultant to come to firms and companies and tell them about the good things about single page applications. But, hey, we need to live with that. There is no other phrasing for that sentence, for that methodology or anything else. So we are stuck with that sentence, single page application. So you probably ask yourself, who am I? I'm Gil Fink. I'm the CEO of Sparksys. It's my own consulting company in one. Sir Tim Berners-Lee created HTML and HTTP. Yeah, England. And then in 1995, we got the first SPA. Yes, Java applets. Who have written a Java applet in his professional life? Okay, so Java applets are a SPA because you have one page that runs the entire application. So in 1995, we had SPA, but there was a problems with Java. There is a problem with Java applets, and later on with other options that I'm going to talk about. Do you know what is the problem? Plugins. This is not JavaScript or anything that is written inside of the browser. This is something outside of the browser that plugs into the browser and do some stuff. Okay, so in 1996, CSS and JavaScript were developed. You know, Brandon High have written JavaScript in 10 days. Okay, that's an awful thing to do. A language in 10 days. And since then, it didn't change a lot. Okay? And in 1997, we had HTML4, the last specification. And yes, a few months ago, HTML5 was declared as a recommendation. So you can start working with HTML5. In 2000, it is not written in this slide, Microsoft, yes, Microsoft created the XML HTTP request, but they didn't know the power that they've written. And in 2005, Google showed them the road. Okay, so Google Maps was the first Ajax application out there. And since then, the Ajax word is exploding. And since 2006, HTML5 specification started to be written. Only in 2009, people started to hear about it because what happened then? Steve Jobs said, over my dead body, Flash inside of the browser in iOS. Okay, so this is what brought HTML5 to all of us. And around 2007, Microsoft invented Silverlight, another plugin like Flash and Java Applet that didn't work well. So before I start explaining Vue, okay, it's like if I compare it with other things, it's like I'm taking the best parts from web application and native application. It's the intersection because SPA is a web application, so it is cross-platform. SPA, because you have only one page, everything occurs in one page, never loses context. So you can make client-side state management inside of a SPA, thing that you can do in native applications, but in applications like ASP.NET Web Forms or MVC, you lose that thing. You lose that state management on the client side. And a SPA doesn't need installation. You have a website. Okay? You install it once on the web server, and boom, everybody gets the last version of that application. So, as I said, SPA is the intersection of the good between two worlds. SPA includes a lot of building blocks. The first one is Web API. The server changes its role. The server is going to be mostly Web API exposed to the client to do things that you don't want to do on the client side. For example, authentication. The server won't render the pages for you. This is something that you are going to do in your client side. Also, another building block is REST. We'll talk about it more later on. You use Ajax or Ajax. Who heard that word, Ajax? Asynchronous JavaScript and JSON. Nobody uses XML anymore, and Ajax is asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So Ajax sounds creepy, and nobody uses it. So Ajax is Ajax today. So we use Ajax. We use JavaScript libraries. We use HTML5, and we have a routing mechanism inside of the client side. So let's explore it. Let's drill down into each block. HTML5. What do you know about HTML5? Okay, you are shy. Not Resnick, you are shy?
WebSocket.
What? WebSockets. Any other things that you know about
Canvas.
Canvas? Any other? I'm a Microsoft MVP in ASP.NET in the last 6 years. I've written a book called Pro Single Page Application. One of you is going to get it signed by me and Ido Flato, another speaker in this conference. So this is encouraging you to ask questions. The best question will win that book. Okay. I also co-author of 4 Microsoft official courses. If you've done the HTML5 programming Microsoft official course, I've written it, and I also, it's a little bit of a sin, I've written the Windows 8 WinJS courses. It was helpful for me. I'm also running a meetup called GDG, Google Developer Group, in my city, Rishon. And I'm doing that with Shai Reznik and another speaker that you probably saw in the conference, which is Oren Rubin. So what are we going to do here today? This session is not about Angular. This session is not about Ember. This session is not about any other framework that you have probably heard. This session is going to help you to understand what is single-page application, how to choose your frameworks, how to choose your libraries, how to write your SPA from the beginning. Because one thing that I'm always hearing when I'm coming to companies is, I want to start writing a SPA. I have zillion of libraries. What to do? Okay, so this is the idea of this session. I'm going to start with what is the thing that drove us to write single-page applications, what is a SPA, and then we will drill down into building blocks of SPA and what will probably help you to write a successful SPA. Because my message to you is, you already have written a successful SPA, okay? Everything that you are doing is good. Keep on doing that, okay? But understand the questions before you start writing your code. So let's get started. The road for SPAs. Back then in 1990, the end of 1990, the starting of 1990,